All right, hello everybody. It is the Dark Conservatarian, and I'm just here with a quick midweek episode of Strike Force. And today, I have an article that I was shared to by a subscriber of mine who is named Metal Minister, and we're going to review it. It's called "Twitter and the Internet Atheists," and then after that, Trump dares Sessions to prosecute Democrats for change. And this looked kind of weird to me because I was thinking to myself, wait, Trump is asking Sessions is asking Attorney General Jeff Sessions to go after Democrats specifically for what reason exactly? Like, it almost seems like some corruption type shit. So I wanted to read into that as well. And why Bashar Assad is likely to use chemical weapons in Idlib. And I wanted to read that because I am interested in foreign policy. But anyway, this is the main article that we are going to be reviewing, or at least myself anyways. Don't know if anyone else will be joining. Maybe not. I'm not for absolute certain. But as I'm reading this article, just FYI, it is not an endorsement of the article. It is not a complete endorsement and support of the entire article. I mean, as I go through it, I might find that there are a few problems, or quite a few problems that I have with the article. So let's just get that out of the way. Just because I'm reading this article doesn't mean that I fully support it or anything like that. Okay. But anyway, by request of Metal Minister, we are reading this. Twitter, while it can be a wonderful tool for evangelism and discussion, it unfortunately all too often becomes a hotbed of ignorance on full display. Such was the case I ran into recently as I interacted with yet another internal atheist who, as we will see, is also deep-seated carrierite. Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, as it says, Twitter and the Internet Atheists, I find that to be a little bit too broad, as it's just saying the Internet Atheists. Like, it almost seems like a Metal Minister is trying to imply a generalization of atheists on the Internet or on Twitter and so on and so forth. So I don't like the title as of yet. And so as I'm reading this, hashtag not all, and I hope that's the attitude that Metal Minister was having as he was writing this article as well. But anyway, you'll note that the following screenshots are numbered because unfortunately, our friend Jackie Kelly here is apparently under the impression that our responses should be to the original tweet as opposed to in thread. This makes following the conversation very difficult. The numbers are my attempt to alleviate this problem. Our interaction, so okay, reading the screenshot here. Jackie Kelly says, first of all, also says that Jesus died on both Thursday night and Friday night. Look, is it possible that a higher power created the world? Sure, but using the Bible to prove there's a God is fallible because there are so many mistakes. Would a smart God write the Bible? No, because it didn't. Metal Minister says in reply underneath that, actually, it doesn't. I assume you're referring to the supposed difference in date between the gospel accounts. All right. Our interaction began with the above tweet and my response. The link is to a clip from Dr. James White's Dividing Line program where he covers this. He did quite a good job, so I won't dig any deeper than what he did there. As to the second half of this tweet, it's quite apparent that Jackie has had either little interaction with knowledgeable Christians or has refused to look at the refutations that have presented of such contentions. Since this already looks like it's going to be a long article, I will save that for another. Okay. Sleepy Projection says in the chat, oh boy. Oh, hello there, Sleepy. By the way, why is it that you say, oh boy? I mean, yeah, I know that I'm walking on eggshells here when I'm reading this article because I do not know of how much alienating it might do to atheists, because I know that I have a whole bunch of atheists and agnostics and just plain secularists in my subscriber base. Sleepy Projection says, I love Twitter atheists. So, I love Twitter. So do I. Well, Twitter atheists, I mean, not so much Twitter itself. But I'm Baptist, by the way. Okay. Well, I wasn't going to make any assumptions of what your religion was, even if you just said I love Twitter atheists. I mean, I love Twitter atheists as well. or atheists in general, not the Twitter part of them, but I just love the person, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, it's pretty simple, dude. If God is the smartest being in the universe, it would have created a better text and only spoke one message to all of humanity, not hundreds of different confusing religions that you have to argue if the hero even exists on Twitter. And that's something that kind of gets me regarding the Bible, is that in some ways, it's not exactly the most straight when it comes to trying to explain something. And so somebody will have to like dig into another verse to like get the full context of what the Bible is trying to say, instead of the original verse being straight with you. It'll be something vague like do not commit any sexual immorality, even though it does not define what is sexually immoral according to the Bible within that given verse. We'd have to look at other verses that say adultery is wrong. Okay, yeah, and that is a sexual immorality. So anyway, I have to assume, based on the wording, that either our friend Jackie here is not fluent in English, it may well not be their first language, or has a bit of an issue with autocorrect, the bane of my existence, and everybody's existence too, by the way, Metal Minister. Either way, I will attempt to piece together the point they are trying to put forward. To begin with, God did give us one text. The entirety of the Bible is that text. However, they then seem to conflate text with religion, which isn't remotely the same thing. As anyone who knows me knows, I'm fond of asking, is an abuse of a text a proper use of that text? Good question. Since the logical answer is always no, this short circuits the argument of so many religions from a Christian perspective. The remaining religions are, as a matter of course, the innate knowledge of mankind, knowing there is a creator, yet denying the God of the Bible. These religions are all based on a very anthropomorphic version of a god or gods, ones that are easily placed into a box that will not chafe their desire for sin. In short, the opening chapters of the letter to the Romans, as to the argumentation, it's really no contest. No other religion has the explanatory power that Christianity does, nor the historical evidence. Okay, so these religions are based on a very anthropomorphic version of a god or gods, ones that are easily placed into a box that will not chafe their desire for sin. Now, I have to disagree with that. I mean, and I'm going to be like using Islam as an example because, okay, I do not know specific word for word what the scripture says, but say, for example, the one verse, the many verses actually, that say that you shall kill infidels, kill people who do not believe in Islam. I mean, if you were to like refrain from killing people, okay, maybe there's an argument that a Muslim can make of how that is not actually viable, as to how that is not legitimate, that plain interpretation of that verse. But I'm just gonna flow with it. So if a person was to like refrain from killing somebody who is not a believer in Allah, I mean, wouldn't they be sinning? I mean, I think it would kind of chafe their desire for sin if they just want to keep on hanging out with the non-believers instead of trying to convert them and, well, execute them if they don't convert. Jackie Kelly also says down below, if your God could only come up with the Bible, half of the books which are known forges and many errors, it's not very smart. It can't even count to 14. Generations in Matthew actually are 17, but says 14. Honestly, God believer would be better arguing without the Bible. Really? I have to assume that Jackie meant forgery, but either autocorrect got them, or they were in too much of a furor using caps to realize their mistake. Either way you slice it, though, it's a historically inaccurate statement. The field of textual criticism is robust with evidence very much against Jackie's claim by both believing and non-believing scholars. Bart Ehrman springs to mind, and even he admits that the Bible is the most well-attested work of antiquity. Again, the errors idea is put forth, but nothing actually cited. And since there isn't, I must move on. Excuse me as I pronounce that correctly. Insinuate that sentence correctly, I mean. As to Jackie's claim of 17 generations as opposed to 14, I really have no idea what they're talking about. The only inconsistency I've ever had given to me was that Matthew's genealogy list only adds up to 41 instead of 42, but since that obviously isn't what Jackie is discussing, I'll save its rather simple explanation for another time. Okay. So, right off the bat, Metal Minister points out a different inconsistency in the Bible, or something that could be viewed as an inconsistency, which he'll give us more context to that inconsistency or contradiction or whatever what you want to call it later on. But he points out a different contradiction. But yeah, I mean, Jackie Kelly really should have cited which verse it is. Says it claimed 17 generations as opposed to 14. Want to argue that the start of the universe really was created by a big man with a sick and a son with no mother in the sky. What? With a sick? Don't you mean to say stick? I'm a bit confused. Want to argue that the start of the universe really was created by a big man with a stick, I will assume is what he's saying, and a son with no mother in the sky? Okay, sure, but using the Bible shows you haven't really read it or are just defiant. I noticed it was wrong at 15 years old because of Mark 16, which is fake. Citation needed. I'm going to pull a teal deer. Okay, this was yet another that was rather difficult to discern. I'm not sure what it means, so I'll have to guess. It seems they're referring to the creation of the universe. However, without God, one must assume that the universe is either A, eternal, or B, cause itself. There are a myriad of problems with either view, including the evidence that shows the universe definitely had a beginning, and the fact that there must be an uncaused causation. If the laws of physics are part of the universe, then they cannot be used to explain where the universe came from, since they would not exist prior to. However, I have a feeling this isn't exactly what Jackie is getting at. Okay, so I want to stop right there for a second, and I think it would only be reasonable to assume that this massive amount of dark space that we know as the universe would have existed for all eternity. It's shapeless, formless, and I don't know. I mean, it's something that I give atheists the benefit of the doubt on because I kind of can understand it. I mean, don't ask my rationale for why I do understand it. It's just I understand it. I mean, yeah, being a bit of a simpleton there, but still. Okay. I believe it may have been an attempted crude remark on the fact that the second person of the Trinity, God the Son, exists without a mother. This is a fundamental ignorance of the Christian doctrine and the teaching of the Bible on this subject. All Orthodox Christians believe in the Trinity, that God is three persons with one being. That's kind of odd because Humane Mind once made a statement that the Trinity does not exist. I mean, I would like to have Metal Minister and Humane Mind in the same hangout with each other chatting about this at some point, but don't know if that would ever actually happen because Humane Mind is a bit of a busy guy, and I've never seen Metal Minister on a stream before except for that one interview that I had with him. Anyway, all co-equal and co-eternal. One person of the Trinity did not create the others. To read the Bible shows this quite well. Verses like Luke 1:35 or John 10:30. The less is quite long. As to the longer ending of Mark, no one who's spent even a short time studying textual criticism will deny that the longer ending is probably not original. However, the fact that we can tell it isn't original flies in the face of the idea that we can't tell what is a forgery and what isn't. That would be like adding words to the end of the Pledge of Allegiance. We can tell what was original and what was later added using textual criticism, though I'm guessing this isn't something Jackie is aware of. For a solid primer on textual criticism, I'd suggest the book The King James Only Controversy by Dr. James White. 1 second, I'm just dying to know here. Excuse me there. I was checking my Twitter. Okay. Anyway. Jackie Kelly, Genesis, not written by Moses. Exodus, fiction. Leviticus through Deuteronomy, not written by Moses. I've always known it to be general information that those books were all written by Moses. I mean, what did I mean? Excuse me. I don't know. I mean, not written by Moses and horror stories. Shows how sexist God is. Joshua through Judges, written centuries later with a purpose. Ruth, fiction. 1 and 2's some truth, mostly fiction. Ezekiel and Nazareth, I think is what he's trying to abbreviate. Known fiction. Esther, story about women selling body. Selling body. I do not think she got any coin for an exchange of her selling her own body or whatever. Or of Bartholomew. I don't know. I would have to like reread that story. Our first list of assertions, yet they expose a good deal more of Jackie's ignorance. Let's see if we can alleviate that. Genesis not being written by Moses. Actually, Genesis was compiled and written down by Moses from oral tradition. Leopold H.C. 1970 Exposition of Genesis Volume 1 Baker Book House. Okay, so Metal Minister is like giving out a whole bunch of oh, these aren't article links. These are more like books. I think these are books that he is suggesting. Excuse me. Sorry about that. Exodus is fiction. Actually, there is concrete evidence that the Exodus took place. Though this particular book is known by this particular event recorded in it, a great deal more is recorded within its pages. Simply claiming it is fiction without citing evidence isn't enough. Though this is a common tactic among internet atheists, it's a logical fallacy of trying to shift the burden of proof from the one making the assertion, in this case that Exodus is fiction, to the opposing side. It's an attempt to force the one you're debating with to prove you wrong, essentially. Sorry, in adult discourse, one must prove one's own assertions. Hoffmeyer, J.K., 1999, blah, blah, blah. Anyway. Leviticus through Deuteronomy, not written by Moses, horror stories, and God is sexist. There's literally so much falsehood within this single line. I'm not sure where to begin. I guess with the authorship of the books, the same literary evidence that shows Moses as the author of Exodus, see above citation, is present within these books as well. Again, no evidence is cited to substantiate the claim that Moses did not write these books. It is simply asserted. As to there being horror stories, I tend to find these sorts of arguments laughable coming from atheists and anti-theists. They claim there is no such thing as objective morality, yet immediately turn around and borrow from the Christian worldview to claim a morally objective stance against what is stated within the pages of Scripture. This type of hypocrisy is common and undercuts their own stance. Yeah, I would have to say that there is an objective morality. I mean, one can argue that sometime in the future that possibly humanity will come to the conclusion that, oh, it's okay to murder your fellow human being even if they did nothing wrong. But as it stands right now, there is an objective morality. You know what that objective morality is? Thou shalt not, or do not murder, do not rape, and some other moralities are a little bit more subjective, but adultery is still considered almost objectively immoral. Pedophilia is practically objectively immoral as well, and so on and so forth. This type of hypocrisy is coming in. Since there is nothing here expounding what these horror stories, quote unquote, are, I'm not going to bother chasing phantoms. Now, the point about God being sexist within the pages of these books is also a completely anachronistic 21st century view superimposed on the Bible. In fact, for their time, these books were unprecedented in their protection of women. Need I point out the atrocities of the pagan cultures surrounding the Israelites at this time? Ritualistic murders and rape were commonplace as offerings to pagan deities, with no recourse for the women or their families. Generally, I'm handed the "a girl has to marry her rapist" line from within these books. I've already laid this to rest here. This YouTube video, really. Wonder if this will like. Oh, dang it! That okay. I would have to like rewatch this. March 5th, 2016. Is it me or did I not? For some reason, I don't know. I'm gonna have to like save it to my watch later at some point and watch it again at some point. But because apparently I did start reading it at one point, and I have visited Metal Minister's channel once. I mean, as you can see, I'm subscribed to him, but I for some reason I cannot remember him making this video. But anyway, all right. Anyway, forward. Josh through Judges, written centuries later. This, I think, shows that our friend Jackie has lost the plot a bit. Nowhere does anyone say that Moses wrote these books, and nowhere does anyone deny that the books of the Bible cover centuries of time. Each of the books covers a very specific period within the Jewish faith and Israel's history. No one has ever claimed otherwise. However, Jackie seems to think that because all of the books of the Bible weren't transcribed in a single instant, that this is somehow evidence against it. Yeah, and I was actually strawmanned at one point from some anti-theist over YouTube in a YouTube comments argument with the guy. He kept on strawmanning me to say that I thought that Jesus wrote the entire Bible, or that Republicans believe that Jesus wrote the entire Bible. I mean, there might be a few, but I think for a good portion of Republicans, a majority of them, both the voters and people within the party, the political party, believe that Jesus, in fact, did not write the Bible. I mean, who claims that? I mean, cite me the person who literally thinks that Jesus wrote the Bible. Ruth, fiction. Again, we have an assertion with no evidence. Considering the voluminous number of tweets Jackie used, you would have expected at least a link to something as evidence. Simply calling something fiction is not an argument. It's a cop-out. 6. 1 and 2's, some truth, mostly fiction. Again, we have more assertions with nothing in the way of evidence to support it. Yeah, I mean, that was quite a broad statement from Jackie there. That a person could easily just brush it off. Jackie even admits that by their own standards, which is obviously extremely lax, these books, I assume books such as 1st and 2nd Samuel, contains truth. Jackie, you shot yourself in the foot on this one. Okay, 1 and 2's. I was thinking that Jackie was trying to refer to like all the 1 and 2 books, not just Samuel, but like 1st John, 2nd John, and 1st Peter, 2nd Peter, and all the rest of them. But I don't know. Maybe she was just referring to the Samuels. I don't know. Ezra, Nehemiah, and known fiction. Again, citation needed. Metal Minister pulling a classic teal deer there. Esther, story of women selling body. Boiling down the book of Esther to the idea of women selling their body is repugnant and shows the great lack of knowledge Jackie is expressing. The book of Esther opens with a king's ministers holding a bit of a beauty pageant for him after he banishes his wife. Esther is found to be the most beautiful and becomes the new queen. In so doing, she is later able to prevent the destruction of the Israelites by the king's second in command, Haman, a very wicked and deceitful man. This is another instance of God turning the wicked hearts and deeds of men toward his own ends. See also Genesis 50:20. All right. Job, definitely fiction. Or I think might be saying a definitely with DEF right there. I don't think they're referring to a book. But anyway, Psalms and Proverbs songs, just sayings. Isaiah, written centuries later. Jeremiah, and I don't even know what LAM stands for. I mean, excuse my ignorance. Maybe real? Question mark. Daniel, fiction. All other minor prophets, fictions, and written years later after author's supposed life. New Testament, Mark, just sayings. Matt and Luck, don't you mean Luke? Copies. Here we have a continuation of Jackie's inane list of baseless assertions. Job, definite fiction. I've decided to forego these particular assertions since no evidence is given for them, and unless it happens to interest me, I will simply respond with citation needed. Even if Job, say, was fiction, like, it's not a complete and utter deal breaker for the Christian faith and the validity of the Bible. For all we know, it could literally just be a fictional work, but it would not break the story of Jesus, which that is where that the Christian faith primarily surrounds, is Jesus and his existence and resurrection and whatnot. All right. Psalm, Proverbs, songs, and also I haven't, another thing, I haven't seen a whole lot of research and study around the possibility of Job, around the evidence for Job actually being a story, as opposed to the story of Jesus. Like, I've seen greater researches around the story of Jesus than anything else regarding the Bible. Psalm, Proverbs, songs, just sayings. That's much like saying the Declaration of Independence is just sayings. The letters of the founding fathers of the United States is just sayings. These sayings provide a great deal of insight and teaching, as well as prophetic glimpses of the coming of Christ. They are either directly quoted or alluded to by numerous New Testament writers. In myriad places, Jesus himself proclaims their efficacy in Luke 24:44. Now he said to them, "These are my words which I spoke to you while I was still with you, that all things which are written about me in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms must be fulfilled." Okay. Isaiah, written centuries later. Again, citation needed. There is currently a school of thought that claims that much of Isaiah was written by another author. However, there is little to no actual evidence for this view. Jeremiah, and you know what? Screw it. This is driving me nuts. What does LAM stand for again? Bear with me. Oh, Lamentations. So, yeah. Okay. Jeremiah and Lamentations may be real. This one doesn't require any direct comment, except to say that my gut feeling is that Jackie couldn't find anything negative in a quick search of their favorite anti-theist site. Okay. Almost seems like a bit of condescension right there, but okay. Daniel, fiction, citation needed. I could just call Jackie here a bot and disregard everything they've ever said or done using this logic. Minor Prophets, years later, yada yada. Again, citation needed. Zondervan, academic. Oh, Metal Minister. He's in the chat. Haha, I appreciate the review of my article. Well, thank you, Metal Minister. I'm not done yet here, though. By the way, have you ever been interested on joining the Dark Cancer Hangout streams at all, Metal Minister? I mean, I'd be sending the links in the Discord server and whatnot. Or if you're a busy man, I would completely understand that as well. Zondervanacademic.com. If what our friend is claiming is that they were compiled after they died, that's possible. They would have been separate until someone took the time to put them into a collection, as Moses did with the first 5 books. However, this does not mean they were written after they had supposedly died, when we have evidence to the contrary. Actually, now that I think about it, Metal Minister says, if I've got time, sure. Okay. Well, I'm almost thinking work has been nuts. He says, yeah, work has been nuts for me as well. Working overtime and whatnot. The last 2 days, overtime really kicked my butt. Haven't been able to do hardly anything related to my YouTube channel because of it. Mark, just sayings. This, beyond nearly everything else, shows us the shallowness of Jackie's reasoning. To claim Mark was just sayings is akin to claiming that a court transcript of eyewitness testimony is just sayings. I mean, yeah, that was kind of that kind of struck odd to me as well. I mean, to say that Psalms and Proverbs, it was just sayings. I mean, it was. Yeah, just that, just sayings, but it was valuable sayings, I would say nonetheless. But Mark, just sayings, that is quite dumb, Be honest. Matthew Luck copies. I think it might have meant to say Luke almost, but for absolute certain. While Jackie corrects the spelling in a later tweet, what they're claiming is a recent hypothesis where people believe Matthew and Luke simply took Mark, copied it, and then added to it. However, this fails on some of the most basic levels. First, Luke himself mentions that he is writing to Theophilus and specifically mentions that he interviewed people and checked the facts. Aside from that, the early church fathers reported that Matthew's gospel was written first. Was there some interdependence? It may well be the case. However, we have three different men writing to three different groups of people at three different times, all about the exact same thing. The idea that there would be overlap is inescapable. If you have three different news stations reporting on the same incident, while one may give more information than another, one may be more thorough and another may be quick, only hitting the high points. This doesn't mean they're necessarily dependent on one another. Yeah, and I would say, like, if there was a slight deviation of the difference in uh okay, interpretations of a story, then it does not mean that the story is completely uncredible. I mean, it just means doesn't mean the source is completely uncredible as well. Paul's 7 letters. So Jesus did all of this, come down from heaven, spent 3 years teaching his disciples that had such a hard time learning. Oh yeah, I forgot about Paul. Let me just drop down from the sky and hit Paul up, even those I said would come again till later. But yo, Paul, what? How is that supposed to... I don't get it. How is that supposed to be an invalidation of the letters of Paul suddenly? I don't know what's up with that. In terms of this tweet, we see yet more glaring ignorance. First of all, why would Jesus confront Paul before Paul had done anything in regards to persecuting Christians? You see, Jackie has taken an extremely anachronistic approach to Paul and his letters. To begin with, Jesus did not return to tell Paul. Paul was struck blind and knocked from his horse. By more specifically, God the Father, I think, anyways. But no visible sign of anyone was seen. He also wasn't alone. He had several others with him at the time. All heard the voice. None saw anyone. After this, Paul then went and learned from the other disciples before he wrote his letters. This is all spelled out rather clearly in the book of Acts. Okay, so when I say God the Father, maybe that's my ignorance showing right there. Maybe it was... yeah, anyway. Likelihood of Jesus coming down from heaven and greeting Paul after he said he wouldn't come again is just as likely that he visited Muhammad as well, and Joan of Arc, and all the other freaking kooky, crazy people that see celestial beings in the sky, as well as Loch Ness. Again, we see ridicule and arrogance, where both are not only unnecessary, but done in such ignorance that only Jackie should feel shame at this. As I said above, Jesus did not return to earth in bodily form. Then we have a major problem with both history as well as a basic grasp of first Islam, and second, the story of Joan of Arc, as well as some profanity which I've censored. It seems internet atheists of Jackie's caliber are incapable of holding a dialogue without copious uses of profanity. To Jackie's credit, that's kind of a little bit of how I am as well. I mean, props to you, Metal Minister, if you're still watching, to hold your tongue, but yeah. Anyway. Firstly, Jesus never came to Muhammad. The Quran, although to give credit, I do it too much. The Quran states that the angel Gabriel came to him with the Quran already written, and that Muhammad was to copy it down. Jesus is only mentioned in it as another prophet, and you would find no Muslim believes that Jesus is anything but a man. As for Joan of Arc, she believes she was hearing the voice of God, telling her what to do. Again, no bodily return of Jesus. The rest is pure insult, and not even a good one at that. Metal Minister continues in this screen cap. Okay, so it's cut off. Well, since you went rather long and every word error, I would ask, do you have Discord? It's far easier to have in-depth discussions on what you've brought up than chasing tweets that are only 240 characters. It would take dozens of tweets to show you where you're wrong. Metal Minister says in the chat, as I say later, the point about profanity is a bit of a broad brush on my part. All right. Jackie Kelly says, do it then. Let me hear it. The issues with Christians is you don't believe in science, critical thinking, or evidence. Condescension much, you asshole? You believe in faith alone, which is the absolute opposite of evidence. Nope. Metal Minister does not believe in faith alone. He has had a full interview with me talking about the evidence around the resurrection of Jesus. So it ain't just faith alone. So you can take your own words and eat them, guy. Is the absolute opposite of evidence. I spent 20 years in the church and can guarantee I've read the Bible more than you. Okay. Yeah. That is definite arrogance right there. Here you'll see I left my response to Jackie so that, okay. And also, Metal Minister, you say that you offer her up on Discord. I mean, well, why not on a YouTube live stream? I don't get it. I mean, a YouTube live stream would show the arguments presented in like a public forum, the same way that you wrote this article right here. The arguments that YouTube made back and forth to each other. But Discord call, that conversation is going to be lost forever. Here you'll see I left my response to Jackie so that you can see how unhinged they became. I had offered the option of moving the discussion to a platform better suited to long-form discussions or even voice discussions. However, true to the internet atheist form, Jackie went straight for ad hominem insults. It always amazes me the level of pure ignorance internet atheists not only possess but flaunt as though it were a badge of honor. So far, the only one in the discussion relying on pure faith has been Jackie. Yeah, as Jackie hadn't really provided any evidence. Actually, no, not really. Has really not provided evidence at all for the claims of most of the Bible being fake and so on and so forth. Providing no evidence to back up a single assertion and happily spreading their ignorance for all to see. At one point, I had given Jackie a link to gotquestions.org as a means to expand upon a response. This was treated with more ridicule as a blog post. I assume that's what they meant. However, the word blood was used. Okay. This is poisoning the well. The point being that Jackie's ignorance was so deep as to what we believe. I thought it might be helpful to give them some background. You see, anti-theists like Jackie don't want to see what we actually believe because then they would have to engage with something other than their straw men. Jackie's guarantee looks more and more invalidated every word they post. And Metal Minister also says in the chat, I generally don't have the time for speech, but text discussions are easier there. Okay. I'm talking about like you offered the person up on Discord. I mean, if you were available at that moment to like offer them up on a speech discussion, well then I would think that a live stream would, a YouTube live stream would be a bit better because it would be like more for the record. The arguments would be on the record and other people would be able to listen to them whenever they please, instead of the conversation being completely lost via Discord calls, so on and so forth. First, I would say calm down. Secondly, you didn't answer my question on moving this to Discord. Is that acceptable? Thirdly, the insults and misrepresentations do not ingratiate yourself to others. Jesus was gay. Okay, I don't know. I think somebody can like make a point that maybe Judas was gay, but I do not see the evidence as to Jesus being gay. Nor do I even know if he was straight. For all I know, Jesus was asexual. I mean, just my opinion anyways. The Metal Minister says, I wish I did, but I was going to add them to my Discord channel. I see. Again, you can see I left my response to an earlier post by Jackie there so that you can see how they were responding. My pointing out that the insults weren't working prompted this little nugget of childish behavior. It needn't be dignified with the response. God told me that in a dream. You can't deny my God dreams. I dreamed Jesus was my gay lover. Period. The conversation is over. My faith is real. Yours is not. Convert to the religion of the spider monkey and you'll be truly saved. Now this person is just trolling you, Metal Minister. Just utter clown right here. Again, more pissant behavior from one who purports to know far more than I about the Bible and Christianity. Yeah, the person is kind of having a bit of a, I guess you could say, a meltdown, or at least a semi-meltdown, rather than giving actual substantive responses. The lack of a single logical, coherent thought by Jackie leads me to believe that they are actually trying the most to circumstantiate their own position to themselves. Yeah, I mean, if you're just trying to circumstantiate your own position to yourself, well, that might give yourself more security in your life and your beliefs, but that ain't going to do any good in trying to, like, convert other people to a certain given belief, you know? Anyway. This threat started with, this threat, don't you mean thread? I'm sorry, was Metal Minister, like, threatening to, like, take his sniper rifle out and blast your brains out? Not that I'm saying that you actually were Metal Minister, but I'm just teasing the person's own typo there. This thread started this, a comment about Richard Carrier. Have you read any of his books? Name one source besides the Bible that proves the Bible, and I can name a source in the Bible that's wrong. I would like to point out my interview with the Metal Minister, where it's there that he provides the evidence. So, but yeah. Here, Jackie mentions Richard Carrier and demands to know if I've read any of his books. I am familiar with his writing, having frequented his works while preparing for a debate on Jesus mythicism. Sadly, that debate fell through, but I retained my impressions of his writing. He is, to put it bluntly, a laughingstock. He is in no way qualified to speak on the subject of Christianity or the Bible. He routinely invents things from whole cloth in an attempt to prop up his collapsing arguments. Other respected atheists in the field not only ridicule him for his slipshod work, but they rebut him on a routine basis. Something else that I wanted to mention. I mean, I forget what it was I wanted to say. Anyway, Metal Minister says something else in the chat. Haha, yeah, either English wasn't their first language or they really didn't have a decent grasp of grammar. Right. I would also point out that I had earlier mentioned that Mark was Peter's disciple, and instead of that being explained as to its error, it was simply called stupid. I also note that no examples of wrong sources, quote unquote, are provided. More arguments from silence. Oh, yeah, now I remember what I was going to say. Props to you, Metal Minister, for being able to read at least some of Richard Carrier's work. I mean, I'm not exactly the strongest reader myself, so I'm not exactly well read book-wise anyways. I mean, I like to read internet articles. I'm a strong enough reader for that. Those interest me well enough, but a book has to, like, be more subject specific for me to actually get invested into it. That's just how my brain works when it comes to reading, such as these, for example, where I'll be getting to in a bit. I would also point out that I had earlier mentioned that Mark was... Oh, wait. I already read that. For example, all modern evidence shows that Mark was originally written in High Greek, a lang only taught to powerful Greeks, not poor Jewish fishermen. Yet Christians say Mark was written by an eyewitness, even though all evidence points to a Greek scribe. A wealthy What you mean to say wealthy Greek scribe? I don't know. This one I specifically tackled in the Twitter thread. What is being said here is not just factually inaccurate, it's pure fabrication. There was no High Greek language. There was Koine Greek, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Koine Greek, which is what Mark was written in. And so was every other portion of the New Testament, as it was the vernacular of the time and place. And even that was ridiculed as Hokolobatictulus, I don't know. A bit of a hard word for me to pronounce there, or stump-fingered by Hippolytus in the early 3rd century. Even Wiccan Swears calls his Greek clumsy. This is attributed to the fact that Mark was writing in an everyday style. He was writing as he would have spoken. So obviously the idea of a wealthy Greek scribe holds no water. Koine is its pronunciation, okay? Koine, that it's pronounced Koine. I gotcha. Intentionally writing a fable. There's no way Mark was written by a disciple of Jesus who we learned, I don't know, bad grammar with this person. I mean, I don't even think that it's just that's just autocorrect being a bitch with the guy. I think it might just be pure, unbridled, incorrect grammar, like the guy is just learning English or something. Intentionally writing a fable. There's no way Mark was written by a disciple of Jesus who we, a unlearned fisherman. Also, many additions we know were added later throughout Mark. Most notable, 1616. Anyways, I've given 1 point. What's your rebuttal? Here, Jackie continues on the false premise begun in the last tweet. There is absolutely no evidence that Mark was intentionally writing a fable. In fact, exactly the opposite is true. As Metal Minister cites right here, a source. I believe the next sentence is claiming that Mark was an unlearned fisherman. Of course, this utterly contradicts Jackie's earlier point of Mark being educated. In fact, the evidence I provided above is more than sufficient to lay this argument to rest. As to the now beaten to death idea of the longer ending of Mark, I fully explained that anyone with even a modicum of research into the history of the Bible or textual criticism will in no way deny that the longer ending is quite possibly a later addition. Not only do we know that, but it's actually evidence for the preservation of the original text. You see, through textual criticism, we've learned that those who copied manuscripts of the books of the Bible tended to leave in what they found. As it's been said, in the case of the Bible, it's like we are putting together a 1,000-piece puzzle, but have 1,010 pieces. And since those pieces leave evidence of their additions, we can determine what belongs. Again, I'd point to Dr. White's book for more information on this. Though Jackie claims to have given a single point, as we've established, it was quite a number of points, all built on either falsehoods or pure misinformation. Let's move on. Also, comment mentioned Aaron Ra. Go watch the Fundamentals of Christianity by Aaron Ra, or read the book, before commenting on Twitter posts about Aaron Ra and Richard Carrier if you haven't read any of the books. I have been well exposed to both Aaron Ra and Richard Carrier. Ra is as ignorant as they come in the case of Christianity, oftentimes getting caught in his falsehoods as he attempts to redefine words to suit his purpose, whilst ignoring their actual definitions. His stance on the Bible and the Trinity is absolutely horrendous. It's a complete invention of his own mind, an odd conglomeration of pagan ideas about there being three gods, while ignoring not only the definition of what the Trinity is, but the context of the verses that are given to him describing it. He seems stuck on the idea that it involves the Egyptian view of a triad of gods. Except this cannot be the case, as there were quite a few triads in Egyptian mythology. Each were three distinct individual deities, while Christianity believes in a single deity. Polytheism ran rampant throughout Egyptian history, while the Israelites rejected such a notion. The Shema, the evening and morning prayer of the Jewish peoples, has always extolled the fact that Yahweh is one God. To read back into it some idea of a triad of deities is pure conjecture with no direct evidence to support it, and firm historical and literary evidence to reject it. I had at one time thought to challenge Rod to a debate on the Trinity, but was consoled away from it by brothers in Christ who showed me that no matter the outcome, he would simply claim a victory and continue to spread his ignorance. I may yet still engage anyway. As for Mr. Carrier, the link I provided above will suffice. No need to retread trodden ground. Oh, what the heck? Why not? Okay. By the way, Metal Minister, is your real name like a big name Christian that I might have heard of or something? I mean, I'm not asking you to like dox yourself or something, because you're trying to like pit yourself up against these bigger atheist figures like Richard Carrier and so on and so forth. But yeah, it just gets me to wondering. Are you more famous than you're leading up to be, Metal Minister? Who knows? Behind that internet alias of yours, are you more popular than you're leading up to be? Typical freaking Christian can't, or stupid Christian, whatever saying. Typical freaking Christian can't answer a single question and just resort to anyone who doesn't believe in the same conspiracy theories as we must to lying. Okay. Nope, I'm just a guy on the internet, says Metal Minister. Sure you are. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe you are just an average Joe after all. Here we see a logical response to my request for evidence for his claims, as well as a request to post in a thread instead of multiple replies to a single tweet. Note that I in no way claimed Jackie was lying, but was asking for primary source material or references. If you're waiting for any to be forthcoming, don't hold your breath. You'll pass out fast. Oh, shut the fuck up, you ignorant conspiracy theory believing fool. Mark was written by a disciple of Peter. Again, an idea with no evidence, an idea Christians push to try to fill in the gaps. Really? Now, Christians are believing a conspiracy theory that Mark was a disciple of Peter, even though I gave the evidence above as to the validity of this claim. As for it needing to be an idea to fill in the gaps, no such idea is required. It fits the evidence we have, including the testimony of Papias of Hierapolis, if that's how you pronounce it, Hierapolis, Irenaeus, Justin Martyr, and Clement of Rome, to name a few extra biblical contemporary sources. Okay. Again, go read a book. Man. Kind of reminding me of this one guy who I've had conversations with before, Frederick Voltaire Bastiat, who's all like, my citation is go read this book that I'm going to show up on the screen right here. Not very helpful in the midst of your argument, but this guy, he does that. Again, go read a book. Carrier specifically mentions people who come up with actually, this is even worse than go read a book, than pointing out a certain book that someone should read. This is worse. He's basically doing the equivalent of Google it, pulling a Cenk Uygur and just saying, Google it. Like, find the source yourself. Which is laughable, you know. Again, go read a book. Carrier specifically mentions people who come up with the idea that Mark was written by a disciple of Peter. Trotsky distorts that argument. Again, so Peter, who was a Torah traditionalist, was an educated Greek writing that hating disciple. Metal Minister says in the chat, if nothing else, listening to you attempt to pronounce these Greek names has been entertaining. Thank you, Metal Minister. Okay. Oh, man, my shoulder is cramping up for some reason. Interesting that Jackie would tell me to go read a book while ignoring the overwhelming number of books and articles that show Mr. Carrier to be pushing an agenda instead of scholarship. The above link alone decimates anything Mr. Carrier has ever said regarding authorship and or discipleship of Mark and Peter. I attempted to chase down the mention of a person by the name of Trotsky. Yeah, the only person that I know of Trotsky would be like a, oh, Conundrum, how you doing? Conundrum? Hello? Okay. just to let you guys see, here's a conundrum right here. Yeah, conundrum, I cannot hear you, but I'm screen sharing you to show you to everybody else. Yeah, I have one of my co-hosts joining me right now, but unfortunately his sound is not working so efficiently. For a second there, I actually thought that you were like Brandon conundrum, because that literally looks like a picture that Brandon would like put as his profile picture. But yeah, sorry, conundrum, I can't hear you right now. I really can't. But anyway, as I was saying, Trotsky. The only Trotsky that I can think of is some, I don't know. Wasn't Trotsky like a figure? Okay, let me raise your volume. All right, I raised your volume to like full blast, conundrum, in the control room here on Hangouts, but I'm still not hearing you. Anyway, yeah, okay. He left. Mic issues. Anyway, I mean, wasn't there a guy named Trotsky who was like a Russian communist hero of some kind or something? I don't know. But could only find links to a gentleman from the 1800s in Russia involved in politics. Yep, that's what I thought, although I do not know if Trotsky was actually a communist, but that's just me kind of being assumptuous, which means I'm going to thus make an ass out of myself. Not theology or the Bible. The rest, Jackie finished by claiming that Mark lived 30 years after Peter. There is no evidence. Oh.
Testing. 1, 2. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, Conundrum. Welcome to Strike Force. About damn time.
Finally here, after all the shit I've been through.
I mean, I've been hearing about Mac. I mean, it's been resolved overall, though, right?
Oh, yeah, I'm making my final video on it.
Okay.
Just how to end it in this, how everything went down. I even put the timestamp out for you, everybody.
All right. So you kind of caught me in the middle of this article, but I have at least 2 more articles that you would probably be a little bit more interested in than this. And so yeah,
right.
I mean,
I'll even have my comedic style to it.
Okay. By the way, didn't you say once that you're I mean, I don't mean to like expose you or anything, Conundrum, but didn't you say once that you're like a pagan of sorts, something, a Wiccan?
Yeah, I'm more of a Buddhist / Wiccan. I call myself a Jedi.
Okay. But yeah, we're reading an article from one of my subscribers, Metal Minister, talking about the evidence around the Bible that this guy named Jackie Kelly was trying to challenge him on. And we're like at the bare end of it, so we're going to be wrapping up here soon. There is no evidence of this. However, since he died at about 68 AD, this places him squarely in the time frame of Peter's life. Again, simple research obliterates another ignorant accusation. Got questions, answered this quite well. Yes, Peter would have been originally a strict holder of the Torah. This holds no bearing on whether or not he took a disciple that wrote of his sermons and teachings. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, obviously, these disciples would have changed their religion after the coming of Jesus. I mean, I would think that it would be kind of plain knowledge that anybody who had ever met Jesus would be a Torah believer instead of a Bible believer, because guess what? The New Testament wasn't even created yet, so there was no Bible. But anyway, Metal Minister says in the chat, Sith for life.
Oh, yes. Sith is awesome. That's why I'm part of the Order of the 66.
Right. So you say Darth Sidious. Also, the source that you just posted in an online blood, you know that, right? And so Metal Minister said earlier that he thinks that when he said blood, he meant to say blog, but not academic source. You're dumb. This right here, I kind of have to agree on. I mean, if you got nothing else, then a blog post would probably do better. It would probably do you good.
But calling the guy dumb is the classic ad hominem attack on my behalf.
Right. I mean,
that's how I am with fallacies. Once you say a fallacy, you're automatically Kaputsky. That's why I love watching the Progressive Voice and laughing at him, because how many ad hom attacks and fallacies he commits.
Talking about of how Ben Shapiro is too squeaky or something like that.
I bet the Progressive Voice would get his ass kicked if Ben Shapiro challenged him to a boxing match.
Probably so. I mean, the Progressive Voice looks smaller than even Ben Shapiro. Although that's me being kind of assuming right there. But anyway, I think that it would do best, like when providing sources, I try my best personally to avoid providing blog posts, but provide something that would be seen as a little bit more objective and, well, scholarly. But yeah, Metal Minister said it wasn't a blog post and it wasn't meant to be an academic source, but somewhere for Jackie to go to alleviate their ignorance on the basics of the subject. Okay, it wasn't a blog post. All right. So I guess that was good on your part, Metal Minister, but the person was just wanted to be in denial, I guess. This is called both the poisoning the well fallacy and the genetic fallacy, simply dismissing the source. In this case, gotquestions.org is not addressing the information. Oftentimes, a scholarly source isn't required when the information is very general in nature. For instance, if I say gravity pulls objects down, a scholarly treatise on the subject of gravity is unnecessary, as that is pretty much seen as objective nowadays, or almost anyways. I mean, aside from flat earthers, you know. It's common knowledge and can be addressed generally. Hear, hear.
Yeah.
And Jackie Kelly continues on, was hoping you would have some different evidence. But of course I was lying to myself is what he meant to spell. Every stupid argument Christians use to defend their faith has been disproved hundreds of times already. Lol, 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 lol. Mark was a disciple of Peter. In fact, his secretary, lol, 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 lol. You know what? I don't even see of how the whole Mark was a disciple of Peter is even like a valid argument. Just in
and resorting to the lol, 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 lol. You lost. Automatically, you lost, in my opinion. Because this guy is supposed to be saying for scholarly evidence, just saying lol, 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 proves that you're being childish.
Right. And you know what I hate? You know what I hate when it comes to the internet is when that people like put up fake LOLs. Like it just seems so, fake and smug. Like when you put in a mistimed LOL, I mean.
Yeah. That's to me where this guy's in the wrong. Laughing in his face basically makes you look like a conceited asshole.
Either you're being smug or you're trying too hard to seem nice to everyone else. I mean, Chairview kind of does that a lot. I mean, I don't have a problem with Chairview personally, but that's one of the things that kind of annoys me when it comes to hanging out with him in chat groups and whatnot. He put up a random LOL when he puts up a text, but that's nothing against the guy, but it's just a little nitpick, I guess you could say.
Oh yeah, we all have our own vices in life,
right? Well, Jackie, since this is a much broader platform where I can provide far more in-depth discussion, which I offered on at least a couple of occasions and you rejected, and I provide numerous citations and evidence to my claims, I believe the opening of this tweet is quite literally a faceplant of epic proportions. You made a great number of assertions, yet provided no evidence of your own, including the closing remark of incredulity that closes this tweet. You have yet to grasp the concept of a man who was a disciple of an apostle of Jesus, writing down the accounts he heard while traveling with said apostle. And not only the biblical evidence to support this, but the historical evidence as well. This is called being willingly ignorant. Hopefully this article will pry you away from your cognitive dissonance. You claim your arguments have been disproved, or you claim our arguments. I'm sorry, that was my bad. You claim our arguments have been disproved hundreds of times, yet provide no evidence, no argumentation of any kind, just blind assertions that fell flat under the lightest of scrutiny. This isn't disproving anything, as I provide the evidence you refuse to engage with. At Metal Minister believes that you can make up facts in order to find one that is true. That is ridiculous right there.
Well, a proof of Christianity, music. Without Christianity, we wouldn't have the basis for music. The Alcoholics Anonymous. It helps people in a way. Everybody thinks Christians are morally bankrupt, in my opinion. No, a lot of Christians aren't morally bankrupt. I know Christians who are very good people.
Mm. And to play devil's advocate, I mean, it's not really, I mean, the music behind Christianity or the Christianity behind music, whatever your point was there, doesn't really provide evidence as to the existence of Jesus and so on and so forth.
I know that. The existence of Jesus, there are historical things. Like the thing is, we all know they have the cross that he was crucified on. Wouldn't there be DNA evidence? If we find DNA evidence, it will prove the point.
All right. Metal Minister says, well, I gotta head back to work later, bro. See you later, Metal Minister. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah, I mean, even if I was to like give Jackie Kelly here the benefit of the doubt regarding evidence, I mean, saying that a blog post is not real evidence or whatever, that would not make Metal Minister the one that's forging evidence or whatever. That would more or less be the blog post or something. I mean, not to say that the blog post was actually making up evidence, but just even if it's true, it's like misplaced blame.
Yeah, and let's put it this way: what if the blog post had citations to actual scholarly evidence? He'll have to take the blog post into consideration if he put citations in it.
Whoa. This is quite odd. Okay, believes that you can make up facts in order to find one that is true. For example, Mark was written by an imaginary secretary of Peter, who is also a fictional person. What?
What?
Wasn't he saying earlier that Mark was a disciple of Peter, and now suddenly he's claiming that one, if not both of them, are fictional? Be consistent, dude.
That's
checkmate.
That's a fallacy right there.
I don't know if it's technically a fallacy, but it's definitely checkmate. Definitely a big boo-boo in himself trying to be consistent with his arguments. And nearly in closing, we have this dismissive hand-waving of evidence provided to Jackie. This is a typical internet atheist tactic. When proved to be wrong, hand-wave and insult. In this case, while still pushing a long-debunked, erroneous view of the relationship between Mark and Peter, and then apparently claiming both are fictional with no evidence again. So when Peter referred to himself in his letters, that apparently was a forgery, and so was the vast majority of the eyewitness testimony in the Bible. Who believes in conspiracy theories now? Or who believes in conspiracy theories again? I'm done with this conversation. Or what? I'm done. This conversation is over. I was not replied to anything else. You go read a book. Okay, the person is very bad grammar. Very, very bad grammar. I don't even think it's autocorrect that's getting them. Also, I wasn't joking about having God speak to me at night. I closed my eyes and thought really hard and made it come true. More trolling. This one was sent just a few minutes before number 21, but this highlights where the mindset of Twitter atheists tend to be. Yes, that is a bit of a broad brush to use in referring to atheists on the internet, and it doesn't encompass all atheists. It just appears to be the majority of them that I run into. Well, okay, to the credit of atheists, this is kind of more anecdotal that Metal Minister is saying. It just appears to be the majority of them that I run into. Yeah, because me personally, especially with my circle of atheists, like the poor bastards, for example. I mean, they aren't so dismissive of evidence and obnoxiously trolly like this guy is. This one, yes, that is a bit of a broad brush to use in referring to atheists on the internet, and it doesn't encompass all atheists. It just appears to be the majority of them that I run into. Note that I'm being told to go read a book while they ignore the evidence provided. The insulting juvenile dismissal and claims of I won't reply to anything else you say, which is reminiscent of something a child on an elementary school playground would say. As Christians, we must be better than this. We must hold ourselves to a higher sorry, what?
It reminds me of what a social justice warrior would say.
I'm sorry. Of what would it be that a social justice warrior would say?
I'm tired of tired of this conversation.
I don't think that's strict to SJAWs. I think that's just people in general. I mean, one could say that maybe it was the attitude that he projected. I mean, there was like believe it or not, there was actually this one follower of Owen. Like, there were only 2 followers within Owen's fan base that I really had decent interactions with, and that would be the effeminate degenerate and this one who I forget his name, by the way, but he was decent. I was decent, but in the end, he still had more that he could have talked about. But I was just so like to the point. Okay, I'm tired. I want to get on with my day. I'm gonna end the conversation right here. You have a good day. That was more of my attitude, but I wasn't. Yeah, continuing on with the conversation. As Christians, we must be better than this. We must hold ourselves to a higher standard, as God has called us to. Sometimes that means dealing with the low-hanging fruit. Well, the low-hanging fruit ain't that hard, Metal Minister. And other times it opens up doors for us to wider audiences. While I doubt any of what I've taken the time to put together here would interest Jackie in the slightest, God has given me the opportunity to answer some of these attacks so that perhaps someone else may get useful information from it and perhaps strengthen their faith or to bring them to a saving knowledge of Jesus. I leave that in the Holy Spirit's hands. God bless. Well, I would have to reread this for me to fully digest this information because it really was a long article as you see me scrolling up. But if I was to reread it, it would definitely serve as like a solidification of my faith, I would say, personally. 1 second, I'm gonna check Twitter here again on my computer. Nothing new. Anyway, if I can bring up screen share. All right. And so, as I opened up at the beginning of Strike Force here, I was gonna get on to actual news rather than a commentary on religion, but okay, this from the Washington Examiner. Trump dares Sessions to prosecute Democrats for a change. Now, what's the first thing that comes to your head when you read that article, Conundrum?
Basically, the Washington Post spinning the narrative that Trump is evil and he's going to be...
No. This is Washington Examiner, completely different website from Washington Post.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. I had a brain havoc right there. It basically looks like they're saying that Trump is going to be prosecuting Democrats in a legal sense for a change in their ethics and standings.
Right. I mean, Washington Examiner, by my observation, is a fairly objective source. So when I first came across this article, I was thinking to myself, is Trump really wanting Sessions to prosecute Democrats just for being Democrats, or is there an actual reason for why prosecuting Democrats, like for actual corruption? Because if it's just prosecuting Democrats for the sake of being Democrats, then I would say that this would serve as a piece of evidence of the corruption of Trump. Now, me personally, I find Trump to be a bit of a mixed bag. I mean, I don't agree with his tariffs. I think he is being petty and trying to revive coal and whatnot. But that's just a few of the things.
He's a wild. Basically, he's like his casino, a wild card. Sometimes you hit the jackpot. Yep. Sometimes you get triple lemons.
Right. All right. So President Trump said Friday that Attorney General Jeff Sessions should focus his attention on Democratic corruption for a change if he wants to show he's not interested in having politics influence his department's work. Okay. And I do remember actually reading the first paragraph. And so maybe it is targeting Democrats for the sake of corruption, not targeting Democrats for the sake of targeting Democrats or whatnot. But
yeah.
We'll have to see what they are defining here as corruption, or what Trump is defining to Jeff as corruption. Yep. Not a very long article. Look into all of the corruption on the other side, including detailed deleted emails, Comey lies and leaks, Mueller conflicts, McCabe, Strzok, Page, or FISA abuse, Christopher Steele and his phony and corrupt dossier, the Clinton Foundation, illegal surveillance of Trump campaign, Russian collusion by Democrats, and so much more. Come on, Jeff, you can do it. The country is waiting, Trump posted to Twitter early Friday morning. Okay, and I do have to say that I definitely know what's up with Strzok. I mean, I don't really care that much for his adultery allegations, but what is definitely fishy to me is that he would ignore the DNC corruption, and yet he, along with the rest of the people at the FBI, but he would be targeting Trump, supposed Trump-Russia collusion corruption. I mean, it seems kind of selective of him.
Yeah, and really, especially about that one FBI agent who's saying, "Oh, I cannot I cannot give that out."
All right.
If you remember that one thing with the one FBI agent who they were having in court, and he's like, "I'm sorry, I cannot say that," and he's delaying the trial.
You can't remember the name. Was that what's the name? Was that James Comey by chance pleading the fifth?
Yeah.
I almost want to think that it was James Comey, but I could be like falling completely on my face on this.
Yeah, they were asking about the emails.
Right. I mean, I know that there was somebody who consistently was pleading the fifth.
Yeah, he was consistently pleading the fifth.
Right. The Clinton Foundation, yeah, as we know, I mean, I haven't seen any refutation to the claim, but Clinton Foundation taking like illegal money in campaign finances from Saudi Arabia.
They were charged with money laundering.
Oh, right, that kind of shit. I see.
Yeah.
That was sourced back to Saudi Arabia, wasn't it? I mean, if my memory serves me correct.
Yeah, it was sourced to the Saudis.
Right. Illegal surveillance of Trump campaign, Russian collusion by Dems, and so much more. Come on, Jeff. Okay, I've already read that entire paragraph. Trump was responding to a Sessions statement that he will not be improperly influenced by political consideration, which Trump said was great. Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political considerations. Jeff, this is great. What everyone wants, so look into all of the corruption on the other side, including deleted emails, Comey lies and leaks, Mueller conflicts, McCabe, Strzok, Page, or FISA abuse, Christopher Steele and his phony and corrupt dossier. Okay, this is just me repeating what was said above. Yeah. Sessions, so excuse me on that part. Sessions' statement was part of another back and forth between Trump and his attorney general. Trump accused Sessions of never fully taking control of his department, after which Sessions fired back that he is in full control and that he would not be swayed by politics. You know what I would also like to see Trump speak out against Jeff Sessions on? And I'm pretty sure you would agree with me on, Conundrum?
What would it be?
Marijuana.
Oh, yeah, we need marijuana.
Like Jeff Sessions, his rather petty crusade against marijuana. I mean, he pushed for like the death penalty to be given to like drug dealers. I mean, I do not know the specific details, but some of it would be violent. Some of the people falling under the death penalty in that case would be violent drug dealers, but some of them would just be people dealing it in large amounts. So I'm thinking to myself, what? Just because they deal it in large amounts, I don't see how that's viable for the death penalty.
And the thing is, it could be the different types of drugs. Like it may not be marijuana. It may be more based on cocaine, crack, heroin, methamphetamines. Because Trump might have... Thing is, I think the Democrats are taking it as a broad statement on every single type of drug, and if they're thinking of that, Trump drinks coffee or soda, so isn't that a drug by technicality?
Yeah, I mean, pharmaceutical medications are drugs as well. I mean, yeah. I mean, it is a bit of a broad interpretation. And yeah, I can see somebody making the case against legalizing the harder drugs. I'm kind of iffy on that myself. But the thing is, I mean, it comes down to the question of what job is it of the government.
Everybody says marijuana is a gateway drug.
Well, I mean,
other drugs. My thing is marijuana is the only gateway marijuana is for is the gateway to the door to 7-Eleven to get some Cheetos and corn nuts.
right. I mean, there's plenty of advantages to marijuana. It's just that it's just heroin, crack, and meth, as you mentioned, that
Yeah.
seem rather useless, full of nothing but cons. And the only pro is that you're getting that momentary high that won't even last that long and will just fuck you up for
Yeah,
the
and,
rest
and
of
if Trump is saying for the higher drugs, if he drinks Coca-Cola, technically he's drinking cocaine in a bottle.
Well, they taken cocaine out of Coca-Cola a long time ago, haven't they?
No, they made the codeine not as much of a drug. Basically, there's like a small percentage now in it.
Oh, so there still is the
Codeine
smallest trace of cocaine in Coca-Cola.
But the thing is, they took out the addictive qualities out of it.
Oh, okay. I see. So there's that loophole for the Coca-Cola company, but it's still a fair point that you make. Anyway, we're getting off on a long side tangent, but it's nice conversing about drugs, something that you're a little bit, I don't know, knowledgeable and passionate about, I guess.
Mental health drugs and weed.
Right. While I am Attorney General, Two Plebs Talk News is in the chat. There is literally zero cocaine in Coca-Cola, he says. That would make it illegal. They replaced it with caffeine in the 50s. Well, 70s, he corrects himself. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would challenge one of you two to like provide a source on that, maybe?
Oh, well, if he wants to provide a source, go ahead, link it in the chat. I don't mind being proved wrong, and if I'm proved wrong, I will stand corrected.
All right.
I'm that type of person. If I'm proven wrong, I'll have the balls to admit I'm wrong.
Right. Good on you. I mean, that's why people consider you credible. While I am Attorney General, the actions of the Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political considerations. Sessions released in a statement Thursday, I demand the highest standards, and when they are not met, I take action. Statement from the Attorney General. I took control of the Department of Justice the day I was sworn in, which is why we have had unprecedented success at effectuating the president's agenda. One that protects the safety and security and rights of the American people, reduces violent crime, enforces our immigration laws, promotes economic growth, and advances religious liberty. Now, I don't get as to what part the AG would have in promoting economic growth. I mean, there would be one way that he would be able to promote economic growth. That would be to decriminalize marijuana so that can be a booming business for people, you know? Create more tax revenue, create more of like a income for people, the citizens of the states, and create more of a revenue for the government, you know? Everybody likes to bring up.
Yeah, basically hemp, stuff made out of hemp is more durable. Hemp rope, hemp shirts, hemp oil.
And I at least am improving regarding, oh man, I forget the exact information that I read on what Attorney General Jeff Sessions is doing regarding the immigration laws, but so that would probably be one of the few things I'm approving of the AG. While I am AG, the actions of the Department of Justice will not be improperly influenced by political considerations. I demand the highest standards, and where they are not met, I take action. However, no nation is a more talented. Okay, so it's cut off from their statement. The Twitter battle led some to think Trump might again be tempted to fire Sessions, but Senate Republicans have warned the president that if he were to fire Sessions, they are not sure they would be able to confirm a replacement. Yeah, since we're so close to the midterms, you know, and it might turn up to be in gridlock, the considerations of a new AG between the Republicans and Democrats, and that gridlock lasts so long to the midterm general elections.
Yeah.
And then therefore Democrats take over and they vote in their own AG to fill in Jeff Sessions' place.
Yeah. The thing is, I'm afraid Trump one day will become the next Julius Caesar.
Okay. That's not my personal my own personal fear or concern, but I guess I can see the argument being
Yeah,
made. I mean, okay, so actually, now that I think about it, there is like at one point where he did make an effort to try and overturn the media license of, I think, the New York Times and other websites to like curtail freedom of speech in the press, so on and so forth. So that would definitely be pretty dictatorial on his part.
yeah. That's something that doesn't sound like Caesar. That sounds more like a Caligula move.
Okay, show. Two Pleb says, for fuck's sake, no wrench, can't link, so this is going to look goofy. The Atlantic .com. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I'll save that article for later. Apparently, 1929 is when that he says that it was taken out. All right.
Wow, I stand corrected. Thank you. Now I will. Now I will admit I'm wrong. I'm wrong. Thank
Well,
you for giving me more nuance on the situation. I really appreciate it.
God.
And what's his channel name again?
Two Plebs Talk News. He's in the chat right now. You can like view his.
All right, I'm gonna subscribe to your channel now. Like it, like your videos, and the next order stream, I'm gonna promote your channel.
The Atlantic. Why? Okay, so sorry about this, but for some reason I'm not able to like copy the link as it's in the chat. No problem, man. I thought it was the 70s, so I don't know that either one of us was all that right. Thanks, man, says Two Plebs. Yeah, why we took cocaine out of soda.
Coke, mainly.
So, okay. Now, the Atlantic, I do generally hear is kind of left-leaning, but I haven't heard any claims that they're outright uncredible. So
Yes.
it's just my personal observation.
Yeah.
All right. I see Two Plebs. He says there's a space between the Atlantic and .com, so YouTube would let me publish it. That's it, though.
All right.
We'll have to check it out at some later point. Oh man, 9:30 p.m. Technically, I'm supposed to be in bed right now, and I haven't even made dinner yet. But anyway, we're gonna power through the rest of this article and this article. Then I'm going to end off this episode of Strike Force. Trump said in another tweet that Sessions was operating under a double standard when sentencing former National Security Agency contractor Reality Winner to 63 months for leaking classified information instead of looking into Hillary Clinton's actions. Ex-NSA contractor to spend 63 months in jail over classified information. Gee, this is small potatoes compared to what Hillary Clinton did. So unfair, Jeff. Double standard, Trump said. Okay, so apparently Jeff Sessions is not completely in the Trump camp when it comes to, when it comes to government corruption. Winner plea, or at least that's in Donald Trump's own observation, which I would take his observation with a big grain of salt. That's all. I'll leave it at that. Winner plead guilty to leaking classified information and was sentenced Thursday to spend more than 5 years in prison. All right.
That's the guy who's constantly pleading the fifth.
Oh, wait.
You had a picture of him.
What?
There was a picture of him in that video.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Was it this video or?
I think it was that video.
Well, I see Jeff Sessions and Trump, so it wasn't either of them that was kind of.
It was the guy who got 5 years.
Two Plebs says Atlantic are lefty nut bars when it comes to politics. There's a few other articles, but they are citing a reprint from a 1903 article that has an update about it being done in 1929. Okay, I see.
All right, that guy. No, not him. Sorry,
that's Assad.
Yeah.
Okay. Why Bashar Assad is likely to use chemical weapons in Idlib.
Right. Idlib. Sounds like ad lib.
Huh. What's Adlib now? I don't know.
It's when you go off camera when you don't use a script. You read off ad lib.
Ah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Like how Trump would be unhinged whenever he go ad lib, or Obama would stutter a whole crap tons of times whenever he'd do ad lib.
Yes.
Bashar Assad does not need to use chemical weapons to successfully defeat rebel forces in an upcoming battle. However, for a number of reasons, he is likely to do so anyway. This bears consideration following National Security Advisor John Bolton's warning to his Russian counterpart last week, when he said that the U.S. will conduct military strikes against Assad's regime if he again uses chemical weapons against his people. Not really advised. You're going to be risking outright war with Russia. And what kind of interest do we even have with the Assad regime? I mean, I say get our own troops out of the line of fire of chemical weapons so that we don't have to like counterattack these guys anymore. And if they kill their own citizens, I mean, it's a real pity, but at the same time, the non-interventionist within me is asking what business is it of our own?
Yeah.
It would be great if the world was perfect, but it's not. As Bloomberg reports, that warning is rooted in U.S. intelligence indicating Assad is preparing to use chemical weapons in Idlib province. That province is the last remaining redoubt of the rebellion against Assad's rule and faces an imminent Russian-Iranian Assad assault.
The only type of chemical weapons they have is the Iranian food. Once you eat that stuff, you'll be producing nasty ass chemicals.
Well, actually, I can't remember what kind of chemical weapons it is. It was a type of gas that they had used, like, you know, the one attack in, like, I think it was 2017 on the Shayrat airfield.
Mm-hmm.
It was in April of last year, I think it was. But they were definitely using chemical weapons right then, so.
The only chemical weapons I know is Iranian food. After I eat that stuff, I'm definitely making chemical weapons.
Please don't shoot it at me, though. So why would Assad use chemical weapons again, even after he has been expressly warned not to? Well, first off, Assad's chemical weapons portfolio includes chlorine and serine nerve agent variants that are useful in clearing out underground bunkers and other positions fortified against artillery and airstrikes. Many civilians take shelter in those locations, but Assad has no qualms about annihilating them in order to achieve his objectives. Put simply, morality is not a military concern for Assad in the way that it is for the U.S. and other allied nations. Second, Assad has a joined desire with Russia to demand U.S. deterrent credibility. Assad knows that by repeatedly using chemical weapons, even after U.S. warnings not to do so, he damages U.S. credibility in upholding international order. That damage is a critical Russian priority and informs why Vladimir Putin's government has actively enabled and in some cases helped direct Syrian chemical attacks. Whoa. Okay. Putin, you're a psychopath. Fuck out of here. Indeed, following Assad's last major chemical weapons attack in April, Russian operatives sanitized the site before international inspectors could arrive and gather evidence. Wow. This is forget about the Trump-Russia collusion. Let's talk about the Assad-Russia collusion.
Oh, yes. Well, they have to paint Trump as the boogeyman so the Democrats can let this slide.
Finally, Assad doesn't fear the consequences of any prospective U.S. retaliation. After all, previous U.S. retaliatory strikes have been very measured in their harm to Assad's regime. That choice of limited strikes sent a message of American hesitation at the moment of decision. All these factors require close American consideration. What's at stake with Assad's use of chemical weapons has always been more than the grotesque impact of those weapons on innocents. Deterring the use of chemical weapons in international affairs is an exigent national security, or at least I think I'm pronouncing that right, exigent national security interests of the United States. If Assad decides to use those weapons again, his regime must face significant military repercussions. Well, legally, according to the Geneva Convention, he would have, I would think, at least. But aside from Geneva Convention law, I don't see as to how people have to get involved in toppling Assad and their chemical weapons use. I mean, yeah, he's a fucking psychopath for doing so, and I consider him not hardly any better than ISIS for doing so, but still.
I bet why he's doing this because a chemical weapon, one of his chemical weapons backfired and it melted his brain a bit.
Or maybe his mother took too much of it while pregnant with him.
Or he's upset at the rebellion because when he was in the college, they just threw him in a bunch of garbage cans.
Oh, he really does look like the Weasley type of guy who would get thrown in lockers a lot.
You know what? He looks like an older version of Randall from Recess.
Randall, is that?
That's the kid who always tattled for Miss Finster.
Oh, yeah, it was the teacher's pet type of guy. Okay, I was mistaking him for the glasses dork, so that's my bad.
Randall is... I refer to Danny Corks as a Randall.
Oh, Bearing is doing this, Christy Winters. I need to report it to you. Or at least I can imagine that.
Christy Winters is Miss Finster. Somebody make a picture of that and send it to me. I will give you a shout out on my channel if you do.
That actually sounds suiting, to be dead honest. All right. So anyway, was there anything else that you wanted to add to commentary and whatnot, Conundrum?
Oh, well, I found out I'm going to be having a son.
Ah, cool. Congratulations.
Yes.
Spread the family name.
Julian, his name is going to be.
Julian Smith. Okay. So there was nothing regarding the news that you wanted to add, though?
Oh, the news, okay. Well, do I have to screen share it?
No. I mean, no. I was meaning, is there any more commentary that you have to add regarding on the news, like commentary on the news? Like, I'm not asking you to like read another article or something.
Oh yes. Here we go.
I was gonna wrap it up here pretty soon.
Okay. What was that guy's name? Idlib, Adlib, whatever his name is.
Bashar Assad.
Bashar Assad or Muhammad Assad, like the wrestler. You know what? Yeah, stop sniffing that chemical gas because you're not going to get laid from it. Because I'm going to tell you this: go out, buy a hooker, stick your dick in it, and you'll feel a lot better. To Jack, if Metal Minister is providing your credible evidence, please don't jack off in front of him because that's very rude. To two plebs, thank you. I will be giving you a shout out on my channel. Check out the Order to 66, 12 a.m. midnight. I'll post it in Twitter. Also follow me on Twitter at PatFace1979, aka the Conundrum. When life gives you those conundrums, I'll give you the answer with a little side of delirium as well.
And to Attorney General Jeff Sessions, get your act together, man. End the drug war, right?
To Jeff Sessions, get those, please. Get the legalization of marijuana session together right now.
All right, so that has been this episode of Strike Force. I'll probably do these Wednesday editions more often since those are, or I'll do them Mondays. I mean, since those are like the only 2 days that Conundrum has told me that he is like available. He's not available Sundays, which is when I normally do these Strike Forces. But I'll try to get more midweek Strike Forces out so that he can participate. But anyway, thank you, Conundrum, for joining along. And I am the Dark Conservatarian. This has been Strike Force. Y'all have a good day, good night, and as always, God bless.